everyone, and welcome back to CYC Unfiltered Ethical Dilemmas in CYC. I'm Afnan.
And I'm Sarah. This is our final episode of the season, and it's going to be a little different. We're not unpacking one specific topic this time. Instead, we're reflecting on your reflections.
That's right. We created the CYC Unfiltered Ethical Reflection Journal so people in the field could share the real ethical challenge they faced. And the entries we received were honest and honestly incredibly validating as well.
Exactly. And reading through your reflections reminded us why we started this podcast in the first place. There's so much wisdom in this community, but also so much emotional weight. So, this episode is all about holding that, celebrating that, and leaving you with something to carry forward.
So, one of the biggest themes we saw was around boundaries, and not just the classic professional versus personal, but also boundaries with coworkers, with supervisors, parents, and the entire system overall.
Yeah, and there were lots of moments where people shared about, being pulled in opposite directions, like being emotionally close with the youth, but having to report something they shared, or watching colleagues cross the line and not knowing whether to speak up.
And that internal conflict that people are feeling are so real, especially when you care very deeply. It's like easy to feel like whatever you do will hurt someone. And that's why this work is so emotionally layered and why reflection really matters.
Exactly. Another huge theme was guilt, not always knowing if you did the right thing, right? Wondering if your personal values aligned with agency policy or feeling responsible for something you couldn't control. And honestly, that hit home for both of us.
It definitely did because I remember moments in my placements where I left feeling emotionally heavy sometimes. And it wasn't because I did something wrong, it was because I cared and I didn't want to do the wrong thing. And that kind of emotional labor isn't always talked about in school or in policy training, especially, but it's constantly in our field.
Yeah, and that's why this podcast and your reflections matter. Because when we talk about the gray areas, the emotional weight, and the things we carry home, we're not just processing, we're learning together. So, moving on, hosting this podcast honestly taught me that ethical practice isn't about having the right answer. It's about being grounded enough to sit in discomfort, ask questions, and stay relational in the process.
For me, this podcast was a space to explore what it means to care without overextending. I used to feel like if I wasn't doing everything, I wasn't doing enough. But I've learned that care doesn't mean involvement. It means being intentional, being present, and trusting the relationship you have.
Yeah, and I've also learned how important peer support is. After every episode, we debrief, reflect, and sometimes just sit in silence for a bit, right? And that in itself was a kind of care.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that part too, Sarah. I feel like we really bonded. And seeing people engage with our content as well, like online and on our Instagram, and hearing their feedbacks and reflections, it reminded me that I'm not alone in this work, that we've all sort of been through these things together. So none of us are alone, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, because of this, we wanted to leave you all with something, something tangible that you can come back to, whether you are in placement, on the floor, or just, having one of those days where everything feels ethically gray.
Yes, we're calling it the action toolkit. It's not a checklist, but a sort of brief guide. And these tools are grounded in relational care, emotional support, and deep reflection. And all the things you've shared with us through the journal and all the things we've lived through together. This poster will be available on our Instagram at cusc.unfiltered. So please be on the lookout for it very soon.
Okay, to start off our toolkit, let's start with relational care because that's the heart of its work. So, tool one, invest time in connection. You can't build trust without time. Connection isn't a one-off, it's about consistent presence. Tool two, show genuine interest. So whether it's asking about their weekends, their days, or just remembering something that they mentioned, because being seen really matters. Tool three, use intentional check-ins and offer for help when needed. So ask more than just how are you, right? Make space for truth. And when you notice a shift, check in, be specific, and be gentle.
Exactly, because relational care isn't just about being nice, it's about being intentional and showing up in ways that make someone feel safe, valued, and not judged. And I feel like that's what the youth really remember. Now let's talk about supporting our peers because our team really matters. We can't pour into others if we're running on empty ourselves. Tool one, validating their feelings. Sometimes people don't need solutions, they just need to hear, that makes sense. I would have felt that way too. Tool two, listening without judgment. This goes with tool one. So, holding space without jumping in with advice immediately, because sometimes your presence is more powerful than your words. And, before jumping into a solution, just leaving space for them to rant to you and tell them what they've been through and just hearing them out. Tool three, sharing resources or debriefing together after tough shifts and moments. This could mean sending each other an article, checking in later that night, or just saying, hey, do you want to grab coffee and talk about it? You seem really frustrated. I really appreciated in one of my placements our debrief moments because I left home without that like emotional weight. And I always felt like I looked forward to it because I had that space to really talk about my day and how it went with other professionals as well.
Yeah, totally. So support is a collective act, right? We are the safety net for each other, and being emotionally available to your team is just as important as being available, for the youth.
Hmm.
Okay, on to our ethical reflection check-in, because those tough moments come fast and we need to slow down and reflect. So, question one, is this helping the youth or protecting me or the system? Be honest with yourself in these situations, right? So, is the action about their best interest or your own safety or institutional fear? Question two, what are my values telling me? So, what does your gut say, right? What do you believe in? And is that aligning with what you're being asked to do? Question three, who may be impacted by my choice? It's never just about you, it's the youth, their family, your coworkers, and your own well-being as well. So, think about all of the aspects that could be affected by your choice.
Ethics isn't about being right, it's about being reflective. And that reflection doesn't always give you clarity, but it does give you consciousness.
So, moving on to our final reflection, to everyone who submitted a journal, who listened, who shared, who reflected, thank you. You reminded us that we are all navigating this work together.
This podcast may be wrapping up right now, but the conversations don't end here. Keep journaling, keep asking questions, and keep choosing care, even when it's hard.
Yes, we hope that this toolkit gives you something to hold on to in those gray moments because you are doing something, even when it doesn't feel like enough. This has been CYC Unfiltered.
See you in the field.